and we'll see what happens. But let's talk about last night. First of all, Texas Tech crushed Iowa State, but Baylor, Craig Smoke, I saw a sense of urgency. Oklahoma has to win this thing. They have to kind of win another couple of games, although they've now had some quality wins that might put them in the conversation. But last night, Baylor, 3 of 20-something from the threes, gave up 3 consecutive layups when they had gotten back in the game. I thought it was a very, very disappointing performance for them.
Yeah, I did too. I said all yesterday I didn't expect them to lose this game. I know that Oklahoma went in a little bit hot, but there's nothing I've seen this year to make me think that Baylor's not going to beat Oklahoma. And in a Big 12 tournament setting, I realize that maybe it's a little bit more important for them than it was for Baylor, but it's not like Baylor didn't have anything to play for, so I didn't expect them to go out there and, be lethargic or have the appearance of not being ready to play. But bottom line, it was Oklahoma had to have that, and they played like a team that had to have that, and they played, like the better team overall. And Baylor went out there like a team that, I don't know, either felt like, hey, we're already in, we're good, we don't need this, or just didn't have a very good game. However you want to paint it, I don't really care because the result's the same anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, that was not a good look. That was an ugly game for them. And they're very fortunate that they're in such a secure spot that they didn't have to have a better performance than that. Now, if it does cost them a 1 seed, then I think there's probably going to be some hindsight and going like, geez, we might have screwed that one up a little bit. Or maybe, the 2 seed's not such a bad thing either. Either way, I wasn't going to try to jump on Twitter last night like a bunch of different people did and say, like, that was a good loss. Like, I don't agree with that. I don't agree at all that was a good loss. If that's what you want to say to make you feel better, that's fine. And I understand the reasoning is, okay, well, they get some extra rest. And this team does need extra rest. Like, that is valid. They do need extra rest. But you should have all been saying that before the game then, if that was that much of a, no, we didn't want to, that we didn't need to win that game. No, people were excited for that game. People were excited to see them try and go not only win the regular season, but then turn around and go do something they haven't done and win the Big 12 tournament. And so, there was kind of this built-in excuse if they lost, of like, well, we're good anyways. But they wanted to, people wanted them to win that game. And so I don't believe for 1 second they went out there not trying to win that game. I just think they played very poorly. And you know what? Hopefully it doesn't cost them.
This is, when we were talking about this earlier in the week, and I mentioned Oklahoma essentially has to win this thing. Maybe not win it, but at least get to Saturday to get in, but probably win it. And, we all kind of agreed that we don't think that they're going to win it. But I do think that being the first opponent for a team that has to win it to get in is the scariest position to be, because that's when they're going to have their best momentum. That's when they're going to have their best, let's go out there and win one for the Gipper kind of attitude, and they're rested. So they're not tired for playing today and then having to play the next day. I would rather play the team that has to win it today, on Friday. I would rather be the team who gets to play them on Friday, especially a team that's squarely on the bubble like Oklahoma is. Now, if your team's not on the, if it was West Virginia that got hot all of a sudden and you're playing them, I'd be like, okay, whatever, play them on Friday. This is the third game, but because they weren't going unless they won it, absolutely won it. They weren't on the bubble. They're off the bubble. But Oklahoma they live on the bubble. And
all right, yeah, no, you're right, and that they had to win. In fact, here's their head coach, Porter Moser. After the game, when he was trying to, as you know, what any coach would do, that's right either on the inside or on the outside looking in, what he had to say about Oklahoma's resume.
Strength of schedule. Look at our net. Look at every rating on that. How many teams have 3 or 4 wins in the top 4 line? We just knocked off one of the top teams in the country on the 1 line. Could have very well been in there. So I know our case for our team. We're in the hardest conference in the country. We have the hardest schedule in the country. We schedule up. Our ratings, our KenPom, our net, everything is elite. So I'll be ready to talk on that. We're focused on winning this tournament. We're focused on that, and that's what our mind and our focus is on.
All right, so there's that. And as of earlier today, by the way, KenPom, Gonzaga, Kentucky, Arizona, Baylor. Now, that doesn't affect who gets in the tournament or who is also – it helps. But it doesn't mean that's going to set up the number 1 seeds, because Houston's a 5th overall ranked KenPom, and Houston might be a 5th or 6th seed. They did win today, beat Cincinnati, a future Big 12 opponent, against one another in that game in the American Conference. But bottom line is Oklahoma torched Baylor's defense. Torched them. 11 threes and you hit 3. Yeah, okay. One thing about Baylor this year, when you look at their losses, boy, they haven't stunk it up against Kansas. But Alabama raced right by them. We saw what Texas Tech did twice. Obviously, the first game was very tight in Waco, though, and we saw a couple of the games. The Oklahoma State game was bang, bang, but that had a little stench to it to me. It's not panic time. That doesn't mean you can't still get on a run. In fact, probably will. But that, to me, did look like one team that had to win, one team that knew they didn't have to win, but Baylor was playing for possibly locking up a number one seed, and that in itself is enough to play better than you did last night.
That game has a cousin early in the season. It's called Oklahoma State, because very similar to how it went, where Oklahoma State played really well and really hard, but Oklahoma wasn't doing a lot of things last night that would make me think that they were going to out and out win that game. I mean, they made some shots, but early on they weren't draining it like crazy. Baylor just wasn't hitting open shots and clanging things out. And the two factors in those two games were Adam Flagler played his worst game of the season to that point against Oklahoma State, and then he played his worst game of the season last night against Oklahoma when they really did need Adam Flagler to have a bad game. He only scored 2 points, and it was in the first half. In a moment, you're like, okay, well, here he goes, and then he didn't really shoot much after that. They did a great job on Adam Flagler. He had a rough night, and it really affected him.
Yeah, 1 of 10.
Really 1 of 16, right? And counting his 3-point.
No, that counts in the overall.
Okay,
yeah, 1
right,
of 10, 0 for 6, I think, or whatever it was.
0 for 6 from 3.
From 3. From Rich Boone, is it better for Baylor, seeding-wise, if Kansas gets knocked out, preferably by TCU or Oklahoma? Maybe it's a stretch. If Tech won the Big 12, could they elevate to a number 1 seed? No, Tech, even though that would be 2-1 against Kansas, that means 2-0 against Baylor and 2-0 against Texas. Texas Tech is in that 3-4 discussion, but they pummeled Iowa State. That game was over very early, and unlike Baylor on Saturday when they were up 27-4 against Iowa State, Texas Tech took their hand, their foot, their elbow, and cracked the neck of Iowa State, never gave them a chance to breathe. Kansas is already on one of the bracketology as a 1 seed. In the other, they're right behind Auburn, who lost again earlier this afternoon to Texas A&M. Scotty B, I say Oklahoma to make the Big 12 look better in terms of teams making the NCAA tournament if they were to run the table. If they run the table, it's not going to knock out Iowa State. It's not going to knock out TCU, and it's surely not going to knock out Baylor, Kansas, Texas Tech, or Texas. So maybe if they run the table, the Big 12 knocks somebody else out of the tournament. It ends up with 7 teams, but that remains to be seen. Iowa's rolling again. Man, they're scoring a bunch of points, 78-63 right now. Iowa in the Big 10 quarterfinals leads Rutgers with 3 minutes left. From Jerry, my dark horse is going to win. And I don't remember, Jerry, is that Oklahoma? Is that TCU? Jerry, let us know. I don't remember exactly which one that was. All right, now, so that's the bracketology. Auburn losing to A&M, as I mentioned. Houston winning against Cincinnati. That's a big time for them. They're gonna be in the tournament no matter what. Illinois lost to Indiana. Indiana's trying to sneak in. How about this one? Louisiana Tech 42 and North Texas 36 in the Conference USA semifinals. Grant McCaslin and North Texas pretty much out now. Probably a 1-bid conference, no matter their record. 42. It was 21-13 La Tech at halftime.
This is why the conference tournaments are both equally exciting and stupid. You have a team that won the conference title in the regular season outright, and what do they get for that? Nothing.
Need to get that West Coast Conference bracket, where you have the kind of the setup for a team like that to advance. But yeah, that's really disappointing. I mean, I'm sure there's some sulking going on over in Denton right now, or just across that North Texas fan base, and especially on the ride home. That we talked to them here recently, and they had a good team, but that's just the razor thin margin for error for some of the smaller schools. There's only so many spots, and the way it's set up, you got to be pretty much perfect with what you're asked to do, and so very unfortunate for them. That's tough to see that loss.
Yeah, the West Coast Conference has the Karate Kid 3 rules, where since Daniel won the tournament before, he only has to fight in the championship round.
Some conferences, don't you go like straight to the championship game or the semifinal? Then they Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Scott Drew, after the game last night, I think, and talking about how this may affect their seeding, I think a lot depends on the other teams and what happens with them. It takes us controlling our own destiny away. And as teams, players, you always want to have the opportunity to control your own destiny. We will see what happens from here. He mentioned the quad 1 wins. Non-conference schedule, of course, is elite. But they still might have to wait to see what happens with Kentucky or Duke or somebody else. And so tonight, Oklahoma and Texas Tech in the nightcap, Kansas and TCU play in the other semifinal game.
Baylor